Okay, so let's talk about a speech that's really sending some shockwaves across the African continent. We're talking about Ghana's president, John Mahama. He just laid out this vision, and it's so bold that some sources are calling it a radical, total reset for Africa's future.
And really, this one quote says it all, doesn't it? Africa must take its destiny into its own hands. I mean, that's not just a nice-sounding phrase. It's the absolute core of his entire message. It's a direct challenge to decades of the status quo and the foundation for a whole new path forward.
Now, what makes this so remarkable is that this is coming from a sitting president. It's incredibly rare for a current leader to stand up in front of their peers and be so publicly critical. This was one of those moments where all the things usually whispered behind closed doors were just said right out loud.
So yeah, what exactly made this speech hit so hard? The commentary we're seeing describes it as a genuine, and in their words, brutal wake-up call for the whole continent. Let's dig into why.
Well, the reaction was pretty passionate. The commentary frames this speech as a direct shot at some major issues: widespread corruption, an over-reliance on foreign powers, and a real failure of leadership. They were even using phrases like, "This madness has to stop," which just shows you how deeply this message landed.
So what's the core problem that would prompt such a strong speech? President Mahama gives a very clear diagnosis. It's a deep-seated dependency crisis. Let's take a look at what he means by that.
He actually calls it triple dependency. Basically, it's a state where a nation's most important functions are, in effect, outsourced. You've got security decisions that rely on outside powers, essential services like health and education propped up by foreign donors, and the continent's incredible mineral wealth being extracted by others, with very little of that value actually staying in Africa.
And here are the three pillars of that dependency. First, there's security. Second, a reliance on donors for the absolute fundamentals. And third, that mineral dependency, where you see raw materials getting shipped out only for the finished goods to be imported back at much, much higher prices. It's a cycle that just completely undermines any real economic independence.
But, diagnosing the problem is only half the battle. President Mahama didn't just point out the issues, he also laid out a solution, a really comprehensive plan that he's calling the Accra Reset.
Now, the Accra Reset isn't about isolationism or cutting off from the world. It's a very practical plan to build new and, more importantly, fairer global partnerships. The whole idea is for Africa to use its own unity and its own vast resources to drive industrial growth and finally achieve a real economic transformation, but this time on its own terms.
The plan itself is built on these key pillars. It starts at home, with things like fiscal discipline and good governance. From there, it expands outward to stronger cooperation within the region. And finally, it challenges the entire world, demanding a redesign of global financial systems that have, in his words, been rigged against Africa, and demanding a bigger voice in huge institutions like the UN Security Council.
Okay, so this isn't just a theory on a piece of paper. President Mahama uses his own country, Ghana, as the prime example of how this kind of reset can bring about very real, very tangible results. Let's see what this actually looks like in practice.
This slide really shows you the before and after. The old system was simple extraction. Just export the raw minerals, sell off huge concessions to speculators. The new system is all about adding value. That means refining gold inside Ghana, helping local companies take the lead, and putting in place a smarter royalty system that actually adjusts with market prices.
And the results? They really do speak for themselves. First, just look at inflation. Look at this drop, from over 23% all the way down to just 3.8%. That is a massive stabilization of the economy.
Second, Ghana's currency, the cedi, appreciated by 32%, which made it one of the world's best-performing currencies in 2025. That shows a huge boost in international confidence, a very clear sign that the reset is working.
And third, look at the impact this had on resources. Just by taking control of its gold exports through a new national board, Ghana captured over $10 billion in foreign exchange in only 10 months. That's capital that now stays home to fuel development.
This kind of stunning success in Ghana, well, it begs a much bigger question, doesn't it? Can this model be scaled up? Can one nation's reset actually become the future for an entire continent?
And that question of scaling up brings us to maybe the most ambitious part of President Mahama's whole vision, the call for a truly united Africa that can act as one single, powerful bloc on the world stage.
This vision calls for a completely re-energized African Union. We're talking about one that negotiates as a single unit on minerals and trade, one that invests its reserves back into African institutions, one that creates a single passport so people can travel freely, and maybe most critically, an AU that has the power to hold its own members accountable for things like corruption and human rights abuses.
And to really drive this point home, President Mahama borrowed a powerful line from Barack Obama. This is the fundamental shift in mindset he's calling for, moving away from a reliance on powerful individuals and instead focusing on building robust, independent, and transparent institutions that can outlast any single leader.
And so, this incredibly powerful call to action leaves us with the ultimate question raised by the source commentary. President Mahama has thrown down the gauntlet. Now, will other African leaders find the courage to pick it up? Or is it just going to be business as usual? The future of a continent really could hang in the balance. And as the commentary reminds us, the people are watching.